Good morning. Welcome to English Mirror. Today, we analyze Stephen Greenblatt's essay, Shakespeare and the Exorcists. Stephen Greenblatt, in Shakespeare and the Exorcists, mediates on the relations between life, art, and theatricality in a sharply defined cultural context. He means to cook his cultural materials, though not to overcook them, and also to do some literary analysis. Let's look at the text. Always keep it in mind that the topic of his essay is not so much the relation between its text, that means Samuel Hasnett's declaration of egregious popish impostures and Shakespeare's King Lear, as what the relation between these texts tells us about the culture that produced them both. Now, coming back to the essay, between the spring of 1585 and the summer of 1586, a group of English Catholic priests, led by the Jesuit William Weston, alias Father Edmunds, conducted a series of spectacular exorcisms, principally in the house of a recusant gentleman, Sir George Peckham of Denham, Buckinghamshire. In 1603, long after the arrest and punishment of those involved, Samuel Hasnett, then chaplain to the Bishop of London, wrote a detailed account of the cases. It has been recognized since the 18th century that Shakespeare was reading Hasnett's book, A Declaration of Egregious Popish Impostures, as he was writing King Lear. The link between King Lear and A Declaration of Egregious Popish Impostures has been known for centuries, but the knowledge has remained almost entirely inert, locked in the conventional pieties of source study. The possible borrowings have been carefully catalogued, but the question of their significance has been not only unanswered but until recently unasked. They lead rather to an exploration of the institutional strategies in which both King Lear and Hasnett's declaration are embedded. These strategies are part of an intense and sustained struggle in late 16th and early 17th century England to redefine the central values of society. In early modern England, rivalry among elites competing for the major share of authority was characteristically expressed not only in parliamentary factions, but also in bitter struggles over religious doctrine and practice. Hasnett's declaration is a weapon. In one such struggle, the attempt by the established and state-supported Church of England to eliminate competing religious authorities by wiping out pockets of rivalrous charisma. Exorcism was for centuries one of the supreme manifestations in Latin Christianity of this charisma. As voluminous contemporary accounts declare, exorcisms were moving testimonials to the power of the true faith. But by the late 16th century, the Anglican Church had no desire to treat the urban masses to a spectacle whose edifying value had been called into question. In the declaration, Hasnett specifically attacks exorcism as practiced by Jesuits, but he had earlier leveled the same charges at a Puritan exorcist. This strategy, the reinscription of evil onto the professed enemies of evil, is one of the characteristic operations of religious authority in the early modern period. Hasnett does not hope to persuade exorcists that they are devils. He wishes to expose their fraudulence and relies on the state to punish them. But he is not willing to abandon the demonic altogether. The irruption of the demonic into the human world was not denied altogether, but the problem would be processed through the proper secular channels. His principal purpose is to expose a nexus of chicanery and delusion in the practice of exorcism. By doing so, he hopes to drive the practice out of society's central zone, to deprive it of its prestige and to discredit its apparent efficacy. Hasnet's efforts, backed by his powerful superiors, did seriously restrict the practice of exorcism. Exorcism had been a process of reintegration as well as a manifestation of authority. The Anglicans attempted to dismantle a corrupt and inadequate therapy without effecting a new and successful cure. Hasnet, in response, participates in a massive counter-campaign to destroy this influence. The exorcist had to be attacked where he had his power, in the minds of beholders or potential beholders. Hasnet's task is to demolish this experience of wonder. He seeks to shine the sharp, clear light of ridicule on the exorcist's mysteries and thus to expose them as shabby tricks. No one in the Anglican Church was prepared to deny the existence of Satan, any more than they were prepared to deny the existence of God. He needs an explanatory model, at once metaphor and analytical tool by which all beholders will see fraud where once they saw God. Hasnet finds that explanatory model in theatre. Exorcisms, Hasnet argues, are stage plays, most often tragicomedies, that cunningly conceal their theatrical inauthenticity and hence deprive the spectators of the rational disenchantment that frames the experience of a play. The audience in a theatre knows that its misrecognition of reality is temporary, deliberate, and playful. The exorcist seeks to make the misrecognition permanent and invisible. Hasnet is determined to make the spectators see the theatre around them, to make them understand that what seems spontaneous is rehearsed, what seems involuntary carefully crafted, what seems unpredictable scripted. The account in A Declaration of Egregious Popish Impostures presents the exorcists, Father Edmunds and his cohorts, as self-conscious professionals and the demoniacs as amateurs subtly drawn into the demonic stage business. Those selected to play the possessed, in effect, learn their roles without realizing at first that they are roles. Performance kills belief, or rather, acknowledging theatricality kills the credibility of the supernatural. Now, the state would, in effect, seize control of the commentary and thereby alter the spectator's perceptions. Demonic possession would become theatre. According to Hasnet, that the solemn ceremony of exorcism is a play of sacred miracles, a wonderful pageant, a devil theatre. For Hasnet, the theatrical seduction is not merely a Jesuitical strategy. It is the essence of the church itself. Catholicism is a mimic superstition. Exorcism is the straw people clutch at when the world seems to have gone mad. In Twelfth Night, written some 10 years later, Shakespeare's view of exorcism, though still comic, has darkened. Possession now is not a mistaken suppose, but a fraud, a malicious practical joke played on Malvolio. When in 1603 Harsnet was wiping exorcism toward the theatre, Shakespeare was already at the entrance to the globe to welcome it. Nothing in a declaration of egregious popish impostures necessarily implies hostility to the theatre as a professional institution. Harsnet's work attacks a form of theatre that pretends it is not entertainment but sober reality. His polemic virtually depends upon the existence of an officially designated commercial theatre, marked off openly from all other forms and ceremonies of public life precisely by virtue of its freely acknowledged fictionality. Shakespeare in King Lear stages not only exorcism but Harsnet on exorcism. A declaration of egregious popish impostures supplies Shakespeare not only with an uncanny anachronism but also with a model for Edgar's histrionic disguise. Shakespeare appropriates for Edgar a documented fraud, complete with an impressive collection of what the declaration calls uncouth, non-significant names that have been made up to sound exotic and that carry with them a faint but ineradicable odor of spuriousness. Shakespeare insists not only on Edgar's perilous fall from his father's favor, but upon his marginalization. Edgar becomes the possessed poor Tom, the outcast with no possibility of working his way back towards the center. In King Lear, there are no ghosts, as there are in Richard III, Julius Caesar, or Hamlet, no witches, as in Macbeth, no mysterious music of departing demons, as in Antony and Cleopatra. King Lear is haunted by a sense of rituals and beliefs that are no longer efficacious, that have been emptied out. The characters appeal again and again to the pagan gods, but the gods remain utterly silent. For all the invocation of the gods in King Lear, it is clear that there are no devils. His prescription involves neither religious rituals, as in Catholicism, nor fasting and prayer, as in Puritanism, but tranquilized sleep. King Lear offers a double corroboration of Harsnet's arguments. Within the play, Edgar's possession is clearly designated as a fiction, and the play itself is bounded by the institutional signs of fictionality. The wooden walls of the play space, payment for admission, non-actors playing the parts, applause, the dances that follow the performance. The joint religious and secular apparatus works to strip away imposture and discover the hidden reality that is, Harsnet says, the theatre. Shakespeare's play dutifully reiterates this discovery. In King Lear, neither individuals nor institutions can adequately contain the released and enacted wickedness. The force of evil in the play is larger than any local habitation or name. In this sense, Shakespeare's tragedy reconstitutes as theatre the demonic principle demystified by Harsnet. Shakespeare's theatre empties out the centre that it represents, and in its cruelty Edmund, Goneril, Regan, Cornwall, Gloucester, Cordelia, Lear, all dead as earth paradoxically creates in us the intimation of a fullness that we can savor only in the conviction of its irremediable loss. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please share and subscribe.